Hello and welcome to another episode of Metal Effort. My name's Nehemiah, and today we're going to be looking at this piece of metal, the Spyderco Manix 2 in CPM 20CV. First thing we want to do is a size comparison. I've got the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Pair 3. Get our little family portrait here. The Manix is a large knife, no bones about it, but it is not necessarily that long of a cutting edge. The PM2 is a longer cutting edge, even though it weighs less than the Manix, which we will see here shortly. I will get a measure in for you just so you can see. We're looking at, just under 3 inches in cutting edge, just under 3.5 in blade length to the shoulder of the knife. It's not a small knife. It's not like a gargantuan knife, but it's somewhere in the middle. Definitely a workhorse, no doubt. Let's get a weigh in. We are clocking in at 4.2, we'll call it. Just for comparison's sake, let's do a weigh in of the PM2. Non-standard clip there. Still weighing in far less at 3.8. Both are under an ounce, or over an ounce an inch. And even though the Manix is a chubby bunny, I think it's okay. It's under 5 ounces, which is where I feel it starts to become unwieldy and not desirable to carry. But it is what it is. It could be a lot worse. So before we get any further, let's get into the dent, the decent, the excellent, the nitpicks, and the terrible of this piece of metal. In the decent, I want to talk about how it could have been worse on the weight. And we can see here, we've got some skeletization on both sides of the scale. I think if they didn't do this would be over that kind of arbitrary heavy weight of 5 ounces. So there you go. It's good. Could have been worse, like I told you. Next thing I like is just the blade shape. The blade shape is a classic Spyderco leaf blade shape. It is subtly different than the PM2. It's less stabby, higher grinds, theoretically be slicier, and I think it is a little bit more slicey than the PM2. Very similar, both being leaf shaped, but still different. So take that for what it is. Another thing I really like about this knife is just the jimping. We've got the jimping, on the top of the spine of the blade, as well as the finger choil, just like the PM2 and the Pair 3. But you got a lot of additional jimping. Some down here, on the back of the knife here. Now, the grooves that are kind of machined into this are pretty substantial, but you've got the liner of the scales that are kind of keeping your finger from getting too deep. So it's definitely not too aggressive, but more than your average knife, no doubt. One thing just kind of to note is there's nothing here, which is traditionally where you would have in the knife to pull on the lock. You'd kind of want it to lock up into your hand there. It seems like, there's a lot of good jimping all over this knife, but it would have made sense to have it there too. Not even big enough for me to put into the nitpick section, but just something I'll point out here. Another thing, like our PM2 and Pair 3 brothers, is this finger choil thing. And I've kind of talked about how I like this pinch grip right here. Whenever you can get your index finger and your thumb closer together, I think you have more control of the knife. It feels more a part of, an extension of your hand, and that definitely is the case here. The pinch grip, it's comfortable, the gripping is locked in, the knife is not going anywhere, and so I appreciate that. It's something that time again, Spyderco is showing us that they are designing for functionality first. That's their priority. Kind of makes the knife look a little silly, but in practice, I'm very glad that they set up the choil and the jimping the way that they did. Another thing I like about this is just how it's good one-hand operation. You can do the classic spider flick, no problem. On my Manix that I got, I did have to dial it in. Like when I first got it, it was pretty hard to get the blade to extend completely. Fiddling around with the action, I got it to where, there's no blade play and I could still spider flick it, no problem. So it is achievable. You might not be able to do this out of the box, but just, kind of mess with your knife and see if you can get it to where you want it to be. It shouldn't be a problem. The other thing that I like about this is that it's ambidextrous. So you've got kind of like an axis lock type style thing. It's a ball bearing that's in there, by the way, a giant one. Can't really see it, but you're pulling back, and then your blade can pretty much dangle, just like the compression lock on the PM2 and the Para 3. It's effective. It works really, 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 really good, and being ambidextrous is nice. Now, on a compression lock, you can do it ambidextrous. It's a little bit more awkward, I feel like, but still doable. I think this is the exact same experience for a lefty and a righty. You can just move this clip to the other side and you're good to go. Dogs are pretty excited about that, as you can hear. So next thing we want to talk about is just the lock engagement. Now, this is my first experience with Spyderco's kind of bearing lock here, and it locks up like a bank vault. I mean, there is zero blade play. Even if I'm really bearing down horizontally or vertically, it just does not move. But, I pull back on that lock and it free falls shut. So really, really good design here. There is a lot of pressure on the tang of the blade. That ball bearing is kind of being jabbed into it. So it's a little bit, when you're not putting pressure on the lock, it's like Gumby. It's smooth, but it'll stay exactly where you're putting it until you get into, the detent. So I found it to be a little bit more satisfying to just do a normal Sebenza open. That's just that constant pressure. It very much feels like a Sebenza when you're opening it this way, and I actually prefer that to the flick. But it's good. It's a great lock, ambidextrous, easy to open, one-handed, no problem. Now let's move into the excellent. The first excellent thing I want to talk about is the ergonomics on this knife. And you can, just looking at the knife, you can tell it's very much not designed with any thought and any sweeping lines or design motifs of flow through or anything. It's, you've got a finger here, finger here, finger here, and we've given you a spot to hang on. So regardless of what grip you do, if you do the one that's further back or if you choke up, your fingers rest naturally in those spots. And so it's very asymmetrical of a design aesthetic, but who cares? You want to hang on to your knife and you want to have control of it. And so this very much so is just unabashedly designed to fit your hand. Even looking at the Para PM2, it's got a little bit of this going on, but still it's a little bit muted in the room that it's making for your fingers compared to the Manix. It's just, no, your finger goes here, here, and here, obviously. Where this, it doesn't have a little swoop in here. It fits, it's fine, it's not terrible, it works. But the Manix I have found to be even more ergonomic and something that, connects me to the blade even more than the PM2, which I was surprised by. I wasn't anticipating me liking the ergonomics on this knife more than the PM2, because the PM2 is a very ergonomic knife. So there you go. Second thing I'd like to talk about is just the value. Now, the specific one is a sprint run from DLT Trading, and it's got, this crazy steel, this 20 CV, and 20 CV is awesome. It's the same as 204P or M390. Excellent edge retention, corrosion resistance, toughness, blah, 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 blah. Probably one of the best steels, if not the best knife steels for pocket knives out there. Van X37 maybe give it a run for its money, or LC200N in certain situations. But this knife is only $130 is what I bought it for, brand new from DLT Trading. That value is undeniable. I mean, you're looking for a good knife. Maybe you're only sort of in the knife hobby. Maybe somebody who's more into knives told you, hey, look into Spyderco's, man. They're really good. And you found yourself in this video. You could buy this knife and use it probably for the rest of your life, and you would be happy as a lark. Its action is awesome. Its lockup is awesome. Its materials are good. And it's definitely, right where you want to be in terms of materials. Now, you could get a little bit more exotic. There's no titanium on this. It is steel liner. It's G10. But in the actual use of the knife, I don't think you're missing those things too much. Like, you're spending a lot of money for that. And this, steel is just amazing, and the functionality of this knife is amazing. I think the value is even beating, like, most of these really awesome knives coming out on mass drop that, We Knives Company is making in conjunction with a bunch of, cool designers. This is just as good as those knives, if not better, because a lot of those knives are using, S35VN, and no doubt this steel is better than that. And the price point is right in that wheelhouse that mass drop is trying to get their knives under. Like the $120 to $140 range is kind of like their target price point. And that's right in that zone, and it's really good for that value. Last excellent thing, and normally I would put this kind of thing in the good section or the decent section, but they put the lanyard hole in the correct spot. This is really smart. I don't know why they don't do this on all their knives, but instead of having the lanyard hole here and the clip down here, or even having them next to each other, this is the correct position. Because does it really matter to somebody that even has like this like hard on for lanyards? Do they care that much? Or like, oh no, my lanyard is down here instead of here? Like, they don't care. It's a freaking lanyard. You can make a lanyard that's a foot long if you want to. It doesn't matter. And so this makes sense because this is not a deep carry clip, but you can put one on, and then you're starting with, with the knife actually completely hidden in your pocket. And, we look at our other examples. You have the worse, but not terrible, where you have the clip and the lanyard hole basically right next to each other. So this one, you really do need the deep carry clip if you want to get the whole knife under. It's achievable. But then the most egregious, everybody's going to be thinking that you're watching this on your phone upside down, by the way, which I just think is funny. But here on the Para 3, it's even worse. You just have the clip underneath the lanyard hole, and this is garbage. This is really, really, really bad. And I will note, they've announced the Para 3 lightweight, and in that configuration, you'll notice they've listened to feedback. So good job, Spyderco. We appreciate you listening to feedback. They switched it. The lanyard hole is here and the clip is here with a deep carry wire clip. Awesome, guys. You should put that on every single Para model. Like, just do it. Just retcon it, move it over, because this is really not cool. Because whatever value you would get from a Para 3, you pretty much have to add on the cost of the deep carry clip to even like make this sort of carryable. So here on the Manix, we have something that, with the normal atrocious spoon clip, I mean, it works fine, but I don't like the look of it. I don't like how shallow the carry is. But even here with a deep carry clip, you're not that far off, from the other options. So good job. This is excellent. Every knife should be like this out of Spyderco. It just makes more sense. So good job, Spyderco. All right, let's get into the nitpicks. Just a few things here. So one thing, the traction that is on the little axis lock type style thing, this isn't an axis lock, it grips good, because if this was slippery to pull back, this knife would be really annoying. So that's fine. The nitpick is, if you're crazy like me and you're going to fidget with the knife constantly, this is eventually going to wear at your finger pads. So my fingers are very sore just from how much I've been playing with this knife in preparation for the review. If you're wearing gloves or you're using the knife a normal amount of times, you're not just constantly playing with it, this is not an issue. So it's not terrible. It doesn't break the knife in any way. It is aggressive, and just, I don't know, you can't do one side or the other. It's kind of awkward to use any other finger, but then it's precisely your index finger and your thumb. This doesn't really work because the angle, I don't have anything to hold the knife. So yeah, if you're a weirdo that wants to fidget with your knife as much as I do, that might be annoying in the long run. Another thing that's going to be an issue on a lot of Spyderco knives is no sharpening choil. And same thing. I totally get it. It makes sense if you have this really effective finger choil that goes pretty deep into the blade, and then you were to have another sharpening choil on top of that. You just had this little dinky blade left over, and this gargantuan handle choil situation going on. So I get, they're kind of putting themselves in a bind here. And I think the overall, I'd rather have a finger choil than no finger choil and a sharpening choil. But I don't know, man. If somebody can figure out some kind of W shape here that makes sense, somebody innovate something to where we don't have this weird grind line. So nitpick number 2. Now, I've kind of hidden this from you, but this knife is awesome and the value is so good. I actually bought 2. And so I've put some brass handles. This thing is a tank, man. This weighs over 7 ounces. So I don't know if I would recommend doing this, but hey, when you got 2, you can do whatever you want. So on both of these, I sharpen them myself. I'm kind of getting new at this. It's a mirror edge. I think I did a pretty good job. On this side, they're both basically perfect. But on both knives, I've noticed there's this uneven grind. And I could have spent more time kind of fixing this issue. I'm going to zoom in here where you can see right there the grind is uneven. And I sharpened pretty far back. If I don't sharpen back, I'm going to get kind of a heel kicking up. And there's already a heel there. But you'll notice there's that unpolished part of it because the machine that ground these, sharpen these, is programmed unevenly because the exact same thing happened on this one in the exact same spot. So, two could be a coincidence. 3 would definitely be, a pattern. So tell me, if you've sharpened your Manix 2 lately, do you have the same uneven little edge angle right there? I'm just curious. I could have fixed it, I think, but it would have taken a long time, and I would have had to remove a lot of material from both sides so that I don't have this side be, way taller of a edge grind than on this one. And I just didn't want to spend that amount of time fixing it when the apex of the blade is actually sharpened just fine. It's just the aesthetic problem, but still, it's something to point out and note. What's going on, Spyderco? Do you have your sharpening machines programmed incorrectly? I doubt that a human is making that exact same mistake on every single knife. So what's up? What's going on? Second thing is when this knife is closed, it is very wide in your pocket. Something I knocked the Para 3 and the PM2 on is the hump, which is facilitating the spider hole. But the rest of the knife, if I put this knife on top, it completely dwarfs the width of the PM2. It's sticking out way more in your pocket. And so, yeah, it's a pocket hog for sure. There's nothing really catching on it. It's not like a sharp flipper tab hanging off. So it's not atrocious in the pocket, but it is very wide. You're definitely going to feel it in your pocket, no doubt. And so it's something I'll highlight. Now let's move on to the terrible. The terrible is simply something I've mentioned in all these Spyderco videos so far. And that's the simple fact that these are really, really hard to get with this particular steel. DLT mentioned on their Instagram that they had 800 of these, okay? 800. And for $130, they're going to be very popular, obviously. In fact, so popular, they sold out in 7.5 minutes, which is crazy. I mean, I have poops that last longer than that. That is a very short amount of time. And I get, this is kind of flying in the face of the fact that I bought 2. I'm a douchebag, I guess. I'm probably going to sell one to somebody that's very happy, that they were able to get this knife on, probably Reddit's knife swap or something. I want to, and not charge them an arm and a leg. That's douchebaggy. You buy 2 and you're trying to sell one of these for $175 or more. F off. Get out of here. I don't mind you charging me the amount you paid plus shipping for both times. that's fine. I can live with that. If you want to sell this to me for 140, 145, I think that's a reasonable price to pay. You did set your alarm for the right time. You ordered it, I guess. But the real issue here is that Spyderco is putting us in this position. If you are not losing money on selling this knife with CPM 20 CV, then why are you just not selling a Manix 2 and 20 CV all the time for $130? Everybody would buy it. Like, that sounds like, I don't know, just a good business decision. So I've talked about this, just how it's kind of like a double-edged sword, right? We like the exciting new steels. We like the exclusive colors. It's kind of got the Pokemon gotta catch 'em all vibe. I get it. That is a good business model, sort of, I guess. But could there be some different model that would, make Spyderco money and still keep us excited or interested in the knife hobby, And I think the solution is one of two ideas. Maybe you combine both. If you have a model, if you have Manix 2s, what steel should you sell them in just all the time? Because right now what they're doing is S30V and 110V, S110V, which is a really high-end, very specific steel. It's a good steel. It's harder to sharpen. And I don't know if those are the good steels to choose. S30V is fine. I think I actually like it better than S35VN. But why not offer every one of your knives that's like a normal, model that you just sell? Why not sell one in S30V on the cheap, one in 20CV for high-end enthusiasts, and then one in LC200N, which performs just as well as S30V in most edge retention, toughness type things, but is completely impervious to corrosion for the people that need that. And then you would have those three steels, which also happen to be, not S30V. I would replace that with crew wear if I could, but I'm not going crazy here. I want a budget option. And so as a budget option, if S30V ended up being your budget option, I think that would be really compelling, of just have like $10 or $15 increments in between those three steels and just always offer them all the time at all the retailers, okay? And then the sprint runs would be different colors or handle materials. That's it. Because then the oh my goodness, I need it aspect of a knife, the collectathon aspect of a knife, is something that's just aesthetic, and maybe having carbon fiber, it is a less heavy material, but is still strong. That has some, practical aspect to it. But, this looks cool to me, but it actively works against me in the terms of the weight. I mean, this is like 7.5 ounces. This is a turd in my pocket. And so I'm doing it irrationally. Let idiots like me shop around for something that just looks cool, regardless of the practicality. Keep the blade practicality something that we all get. We should all have access to, the high-end steels if we want to pay for it. Give me 20CV, give me LC200N, and give me S30V as an option all the time. Maybe I'm buying a model I'm not super excited about, or maybe I'm just curious about, and I don't want to invest too much. Like the Kapara is in S30V. Okay, but everybody loved that knife. And so if you had put it in, 20CV and LC200N, that knife, not only would there be more knives for people that ended up liking that knife, but you wouldn't have to wait 2 or 3 years for a sprint run to have a steel that just makes sense practically. It's a great blade shape and knife for the kitchen. Give us LC200N. So I don't want to pick too much on the Manix. This is a fantastic steel at a fantastic price. I wish this was something that was available to everyone. And so this isn't so much on this knife, more about Spyderco in general and me giving you an alternative. I don't just want to cry and whine about the sprint run. What's a solution? And so I put forth that as a solution. If you like it, talk about, in the comments, but I'm a tiny channel. You need to tell Spyderco. You need to show up on forums. You go on Instagram and tell them this is what you want. Tell them that I sent you and that we should do this in the future. So what's my conclusion? My conclusion is this is an awesome knife, and I like it. I like it a lot, guys. I like it way more than I thought I was going to, and it actually competes with the PM2 in terms of like what's my go-to heavy-duty knife recommendation. And this is just one of 3 knives that I think deserve that spot, possibly. You have the Manix 2, you have the PM2, and then eventually the Shaman. And I'm not buying the Shaman and S30V because I don't want that steel. I want a nicer steel, guys. I do. So I'm waiting for some, that 2-year wait for a sprint run of this being in crew wear or, 20ZV or M390 or something. And so once I get that Shaman and I get my hands on it, because I have not handled one, we will do an ultimate showdown of which is the best hard use, practical knife, like the beater type. Because these two are close enough in quality, I don't know which one I would pick them between the two, and we'll just save that decision for when I have a Manix or a Spyderco Shaman, and we'll have the showdown. So make sure you keep your ear to the ground and pay attention to my channel enough to see that video once it finally shows up. So that's it. Should you get this knife in 20CV? Hell yeah! If you're a fan of S30V or 110V, S110V, you can get those knives. I think there's even like a Maximate if you want to really get experimental. So yeah, this knife is awesome, and if you can get it at a decent price with a decent steel you like, it definitely gets my recommendation. That's it. That's all I have for you guys and girls. I'll see you in the next one. Bye.